Sometimes the most confusing part of modern dating is realizing that not every interaction is what it seems. You meet someone who feels charming, attentive, emotionally open for a moment, and yet something in your body tells you there's a disconnect. Today, we're talking about 7 tricks some men use to get women into bed, not to shame anyone, but to create clarity, awareness, and emotional intelligence, because nothing strengthens intimacy more than understanding the psychology behind human behavior. And if you've ever wondered why certain patterns repeat, or why some connections fade the moment someone gets what they want, this conversation might help you see dating dynamics in a whole new way. I'm the Intimacy Doctor, real talk, real science, real intimacy. When I work with people on relationship communication, emotional connection, and understanding the science of attraction, one theme comes up often. Some behaviors look like genuine intimacy, but are actually strategies people use when they want closeness without responsibility, attention without commitment, or sex without emotional presence. And while women can do these things too, today we're focusing on male behavior because that's the pattern most people describe when they talk about feeling misled, confused, or emotionally rushed. The first pattern I want to explore is something called intensity masquerading as intimacy. Psychology researchers often refer to this as love bombing in its extreme form, but it can also show up in softer, more subtle ways. Some men know that emotional closeness leads to physical closeness for many women, so instead of building genuine connection, they create an intense emotional bubble very quickly. They use fast compliments, long eye contact, deep personal disclosures, or big romantic gestures early on. It feels flattering, exciting, almost cinematic, but the key difference between real intimacy and manufactured intensity is pacing. Real intimacy grows through consistency and communication. Manufactured intensity pushes you toward closeness before you've had the time to actually know someone. This isn't about blaming yourself if you've ever been pulled into intensity. Intensity is biologically stimulating. It floods your brain with dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. It literally makes you feel bonded, even if the relationship hasn't had enough time to develop. So the practical takeaway here is simple. When something feels fast, ask yourself, is this connection growing or is it accelerating? And if it feels like someone is emotionally sprinting toward you, it's worth slowing the pace and noticing what happens. Do they stay patient, curious, and engaged, or do they pull back when you put up a boundary? Share your thoughts below. Have you ever felt intensity mistaken for intimacy? The second pattern is what I call strategic listening. This one is surprisingly common. Some men realize that women value emotional connection, empathy, and presence, and instead of developing those qualities, they perform them. They ask thoughtful questions, they reflect your words back to you, they make you feel heard and understood. And here's the tricky part, they are listening just not for connection. They're listening for access. They're listening for insecurities they can soothe, for values they can mirror, for emotional needs they can temporarily fulfill. It's not real emotional availability. It's more like emotional mimicry. Relationship science tells us that being genuinely listened to activates the same parts of the brain associated with safety and trust. So when someone uses listening as a tactic rather than a connection, building skill, it creates confusion because your nervous system reads it as bonding. The practical skill here is to look for follow-through. Does the person only show empathy during the moment, or does that empathy show up consistently over time? Do they remember what you say in ways that matter, like respecting your boundaries, your preferences, your pace? Or do they only use your words to get closer physically? If this resonates, hit that like button so more people can find it. The third pattern is a classic, but still incredibly effective, future faking. This is when someone hints at or talks about future plans, trips you'll take, experiences you'll share, even the potential of a long-term relationship, without actually taking the steps to make those things real. For some men, this isn't intentional manipulation. They may genuinely feel the excitement of possibility in the moment. But for others, it's a conscious strategy. They know that imagining a future together builds trust, emotional connection, and physical closeness. The difference between fantasy and intention is what happens next. Are they consistent? Do they plan dates in the real world? Do they follow through on the things they say they want? Research on relationship trust shows that reliability is one of the strongest predictors of long-term compatibility. So if someone loves to paint beautiful futures but disappears when it's time to build something in the present, that's a sign to pause. What do you think about future faking? Have you seen it in your own experiences? The fourth pattern is selective vulnerability. This one can be confusing because it feels so real. Many women describe moments where a man opens up about something hard, a painful childhood memory, a difficult past relationship, a moment of insecurity, and in that moment, it feels like he's letting you in. But sometimes this vulnerability is selective. It's used not to deepen connection but to fast-track trust. It creates an emotional shortcut. The challenge is that genuine vulnerability leads to responsibility, follow-up conversations, emotional consistency, reciprocal care. Love, it appears when someone wants closeness, disappears when emotional labor is needed, and reappears when they want connection again. Behavioral research shows that vulnerability builds trust only when it's balanced, mutual, and connected to positive relational behavior. So a practical way to navigate this is to ask yourself, does this person share their emotional world in an ongoing way, or just when it benefits them? And do they show care for your inner world too? Let me know in the comments if selective vulnerability is something you've noticed before. Another pattern, and this one can be subtle, is hot and cold reinforcement, which is rooted in basic behavioral psychology. Some men will be intensely attentive one moment and distant the next, hot and cold, present and then gone, attentive and then distracted. This inconsistency keeps you guessing, and your brain starts associating intimacy with uncertainty. Studies on intermittent reinforcement show that inconsistent rewards are far more psychologically addictive than consistent ones. So even though the connection feels unstable, the moments of closeness feel more powerful. But here's the catch. This dynamic can make you doubt yourself, overinvest, or rationalize behavior that doesn't actually meet your emotional needs. The practical takeaway here is to check how you feel around the person overall. Not during the highs, during the average moments. Do you feel safe or on edge, relaxed or confused, connected or anxious, in healthy intimacy? Consistency is a form of caring. If someone's attention feels unpredictable, it's okay to step back and evaluate what your nervous system is experiencing. Another trick some men use is compliment priming, not just giving compliments, but giving very specific ones that build emotional dependence. Things like "you're not like other women," or "I've never met someone who understands me like you do," or "I feel like I can talk to you about anything." These statements feel good because they're validating, but they also subtly create a sense of being chosen or special in a way that fast-tracks intimacy. Compliment priming isn't inherently harmful. It depends on intention. But if the compliments disappear once physical intimacy happens, or if the compliments are there only to lower your guard, it becomes a tactic rather than connection. Relationship psychology reminds us that genuine praise comes from consistent emotional connection, not from trying to unlock closeness. So the practical skill here is to observe what compliments are tied to. Are they tied to who you are, or are they tied to what someone wants from you? And finally, there's a pattern I call ambiguity by design. Some men avoid defining the relationship because ambiguity keeps their options open while still giving them access to intimacy. They'll say things like "let's just see where it goes," or "I'm not ready for labels," but still act like a partner in moments that benefit them. Ambiguity creates emotional confusion because their behavior and their words don't match. Relationship science shows that clarity and commitment, even in small forms, increase satisfaction and reduce anxiety. So if someone resists clarity but still wants closeness, that's a sign they may be prioritizing their comfort over your emotional well-being. A practical approach is to ask direct questions and watch the consistency of the response. Not just the words, the behavior. And as we talk about these patterns, it's so important to remember, not all men use these behaviors intentionally. Sometimes they're unconscious patterns learned from past relationships, fear of commitment, or gaps in communication skills. The goal isn't to demonize men. The goal is to help you recognize dynamics that affect your emotional health, your boundaries, and your ability to build genuine intimacy. Awareness creates freedom, emotional intelligence creates clarity, and connection grows when both people are honest about what they want. What do you think? Have you ever experienced any of these patterns, either on the giving or receiving end? Share your thoughts below. Your stories help others feel understood and less alone. And if this conversation resonates with you, go ahead and tap that like button so more people can find videos built on emotional health, relationship science, and real intimacy. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm the Intimacy Doctor, real talk, real science, real intimacy. If you want more videos on communication, trust, emotional connection, and the psychology of relationships, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. And when you're ready, go watch the next video where we dig deeper into how emotional unavailability disguises itself in early dating, and how to recognize it before it becomes a pattern. I'll see you there.